Her breath fogged the window, but she wasn't cold. Lena noticed it only because the night was so still. The cabin sat alone in a shallow valley surrounded by dark fir trees, their tops barely visible through the tall windows that faced the woods. The glass was thick and old, faintly rippled in a way that bent reflections slightly out of shape. When she leaned close, the lamplight from inside stretched strangely across it. Her breath touched the pane and bloomed into a pale oval of fog. She frowned. The wood stove behind her hummed softly, its iron sides radiating warmth into the small living room. The air smelled faintly of pine sap and the coffee she'd finished an hour ago. Her sweater sleeves were pushed to her elbows. Her skin was warm. Still, the fog spread slowly across the glass. She lifted a hand and pressed her palm against it. The window was cool, but not cold enough for condensation. Not like this. Her breath came again. Another bloom. Lena stepped back, rubbing her arms without thinking. Outside, the forest was motionless. No wind, no rustling branches. The snow that had fallen earlier lay smooth and untouched across the clearing. She leaned forward again, curious now, and exhaled. The fog appeared instantly, thicker this time, as if the glass had been waiting. "That's weird," she murmured to the empty cabin. Her voice sounded too loud in the quiet room. The fog slowly thinned and faded, dissolving into the faint waviness of the old windowpane. She watched the last of it disappear. Then something in the reflection caught her eye. She froze. The window reflected the living room behind her, the table, the couch, the stove's dull glow, but something about it felt wrong. The reflection was delayed. Not by much, just enough that when she turned her head slightly, the reflection followed a fraction of a second later. Lena blinked. She tested it again. Turning left. The reflection turned left too, but a heartbeat behind. A small, cold unease slid through her chest. "That's just the glass," she whispered. Old glass warped reflections. Everyone knew that. It could stretch them, ripple them, but delay them? She leaned closer. Her breath fogged the window again. This time the shape was different. Not a cloud. Lines. The condensation spread in narrow streaks, branching faintly like frost patterns. Lena tilted her head. The lines seemed familiar somehow. Curving shapes. Loops. Her stomach tightened. They looked almost like letters. Before she could study them, the fog thinned again and vanished. The glass returned to normal. Her reflection stood alone in the pane. Lena stepped back from the window. The cabin felt quieter than before. Even the stove seemed softer now, its metal ticking occasionally as it cooled. She listened for wind outside, for snow sliding from branches. Anything. Nothing. Just stillness. Her eyes drifted back to the window. She told herself not to, but curiosity pulled her forward again. She leaned close and exhaled slowly. Fog blossomed across the glass. This time it spread wider, and the shapes appeared immediately. Clearer. Letters. They formed slowly, as though something invisible were tracing them from beneath the condensation. Lena's breath caught. The word was simple. Lena. Her own name. She stared at it until the fog thinned and the letters dissolved. "No," she said quietly. Her heart had begun to beat faster. "That's not." She glanced over her shoulder. The cabin was empty. She had arrived that afternoon. The nearest road was 2 miles away, and the snow outside would have shown footprints if anyone had come near the cabin. But the glass, the letters. Her breath fogged the window again before she realized she'd exhaled. More shapes appeared. Not letters this time. Images, faint and shifting, like photographs pressed into frost. Lena leaned closer, her forehead nearly touching the pane. The shapes clarified. Kitchen, a different house, a memory, her childhood home. She recognized the narrow hallway, the yellow light over the sink. The fog shifted and deepened, revealing more detail. Her mother standing at the counter, her father's coat hanging near the door. Lena stepped back sharply. The fog faded again. Her hands were trembling now. "That's not possible." Her voice felt small in the cabin. She forced herself to breathe slowly. The next breath fogged the window again. More images formed. A hospital corridor. The day her father died. The memory sharpened with eerie precision. The polished floor. The quiet hum of fluorescent lights. The chair where she'd sat waiting. The fog pulsed faintly, then faded. Lena backed away from the window until her shoulders touched the opposite wall. Her chest rose and fell unevenly. "It's just stress," she whispered. But the words sounded hollow, because the fog hadn't appeared randomly. It had followed her breath and her thoughts. She stared at the glass from across the room. Slowly, she realized something else. The fog had grown thicker each time, as if something was learning or responding. Her pulse hammered in her ears. "No more," she said. But even as she spoke, her breathing deepened. The next exhale drifted across the room. The window fogged again. From where she stood, the condensation spread across nearly the entire pane. And this time the reflection changed. Lena's reflection stood in the center of the glass. But behind her, something moved. Her stomach dropped. She turned instantly. The cabin was empty. Nothing behind her. No movement. Just the quiet stove and the dark hallway leading to the bedroom. Slowly, she looked back at the window. The reflection remained. And behind her reflection stood a second shape. Tall, still, its form barely visible through the fog. Her throat tightened. "I'm alone," she whispered, but the words barely reached her ears. The fog thickened again. More shapes formed. Not memories, not letters. Pattern. Concentric circles spreading outward from the center of the glass. Ripples, like something pressing against water from the other side. Lena felt the temperature drop slightly. Not in the room. In the glass. The pane had grown colder under the fog. Her breath came faster now, feeding the condensation. The circles widened. The reflection behind her grew clearer. A face began to form in the frost. Not fully human. Too long. Too still. Watching. The circles in the fog pulsed. And suddenly Lena understood. The fog wasn't reacting to cold air. It was reacting to her breathing, to her emotions. Every breath had been a signal, a beacon. Something beyond the glass had been watching the patterns, learning them, waiting. Her lungs tightened. She forced herself not to breathe. The fog began to thin. The circles faded slightly. The shape behind her reflection blurred. For a moment, the glass looked almost normal again. Lena held her breath as long as she could. Then instinct forced her to inhale. Her next exhale burst across the window. The fog exploded outward. The circles reformed instantly. And on the other side of the glass, the shape leaned closer. Close enough that its outline pressed against the condensation. The frost parted slightly where its face touched. Two hollow impressions appeared in the fog. Eyes studying her. Lena staggered backward. The window trembled faintly. The circles pulsed faster now. The thing behind the glass had stopped watching. Now it was aligning itself with the pattern of her breathing, matching it, learning the rhythm. Her chest rose and fell helplessly. The fog thickened with every breath. And slowly, very slowly, a second patch of condensation appeared on the inside of the glass, directly opposite hers. Not from her breath. From the other side. Something inhaled there, mirroring her, preparing. Lena realized then, with a quiet, sinking dread, the fog was never meant to show her memories. It was teaching the thing beyond the glass how to breathe like her. And when its breath finally matched hers perfectly, the window would no longer be between them. The doorframe pulsed like a heartbeat. At first, I thought it was the light. The hallway bulb above the kitchen door had been flickering for weeks, stuttering between dim yellow and a thin, electrical white. The landlord said the wiring in the building was old, older than the city permit records, apparently. I'd learned to ignore the subtle changes in brightness the way people ignore the hum of refrigerators or the distant rumble of plumbing. But light doesn't move wood. I stood in the hallway and watched the frame again. The movement was small, almost imperceptible, but once I'd noticed it, I couldn't unsee it. The vertical boards on either side of the doorway bowed outward slightly, then relaxed. A slow expansion, then contraction. The motion had rhythm. I stepped closer, squinting. The hallway was narrow, just wide enough for two people to pass if one of them turned sideways. The paint on the walls had that chalky texture that comes with too many coats over too many decades. My apartment door stood open behind me, letting the cold blue glow of the living room television spill down the hall. The kitchen doorway was 10 feet away. The frame flexed again. Not creaking, not cracking, just moving. And the air moved with it. Each pulse pushed a faint pressure through the hallway, like the breath of a sleeping animal. My shirt fluttered against my chest. I frowned. Old buildings shift all the time, I told myself. Wood absorbs moisture. Temperature changes cause expansion. Maybe the radiator kicking on downstairs was sending vibrations through the walls. Still, I found myself counting. 1, 2, 3. Pulse. Another 3 seconds. Pulse. Slow. Steady. A heartbeat. My rational brain rejected the thought immediately, but the rhythm had that unmistakable organic timing. Not the precise repetition of machinery, but the subtle irregularity of something alive. I stepped closer. The air felt thicker near the doorway, like humidity before rain. The light flickered again, and for a moment the shadow of the doorframe stretched long across the hallway floor. As it pulsed outward, the shadow expanded with it, like a rib cage inhaling. I reached out and placed my fingers against the wood. It was warm, not room temperature warm, body warm. I pulled my hand back immediately. "That's not possible," I muttered. The wood shifted again. Pulse. This time I felt it through the air before touching it. The subtle compression in my ears, the way the hallway seemed to tighten for half a second before relaxing. I leaned closer, inspecting the seams where the frame met the wall. No cracks, no swelling, just motion. My phone was in my pocket. I pulled it out and opened the camera, switching to video. If the frame really was moving, I'd have proof. Some structural explanation. Maybe the building was settling in a way that warped the doorway. I held the phone steady. The frame pulsed. Watching it through the screen made it clearer somehow. The movement wasn't random. The center of the frame, the space where a door would normally swing, seemed to deepen slightly each time the wood expanded, like the hallway stretched longer for a moment. I frowned and took a step back. The pulse slowed. I stepped forward again. It sped up. My stomach tightened. I tested it again. 1 step back. The rhythm softened. 1 step forward. The pulse strengthened, the wood pushing outward more noticeably now. I swallowed. "Proximity," I whispered. It was reacting to distance. Maybe pressure sensors? Some weird structural resonance with movement? I didn't believe any of it, but my brain kept trying to force the phenomenon into familiar categories. I moved closer until I was standing directly in front of the frame. The pulse quickened. Thump, thump, thump. The hallway light flickered rapidly now, strobing the space in short bursts of brightness. For a moment, I had the strange sensation that the walls themselves were breathing along with the frame. The air grew heavier. Then the rhythm changed. It didn't speed up exactly. It matched something. I noticed it because I suddenly felt short of breath. My chest was rising and falling faster than before, and the frame was moving in the same pattern. I froze. The pulsing continued. Exactly with my breathing. I held my breath. The door frame hesitated. Then the movement slowed. I exhaled carefully. Pulse. My mouth went dry. "Okay," I said quietly. "That's new." I forced myself to breathe slowly, experimentally. The frame mirrored every change. Fast, slow, shallow, deep. Each time the wood expanded, the hallway seemed to stretch just a little farther into darkness beyond the kitchen. The room on the other side looked slightly deeper than it should have been. But that wasn't the only thing. After a minute of testing, I realized the frame wasn't just matching my breathing. It was matching my heart. I felt it in the pauses. When my pulse quickened, the doorway responded. When I calmed myself, it softened. It was sinking with me. The realization crept in slowly, like cold water seeping under a door. I pressed 2 fingers against my wrist. My heartbeat hammered beneath the skin. The doorframe pulsed in perfect time. Thump, thump, thump. The hallway light flickered violently now, buzzing with a faint electrical whine. Something inside the frame shifted. Not the wood, the space. For a moment, the darkness inside the kitchen doorway looked thicker than normal, like depth layered on depth, receding farther than the small room should allow. I took a cautious step back. The pulse followed me, still matching, still listening. I felt a strange, irrational thought slide into my mind. What if it wasn't reacting to me? What if it was learning me? My breathing grew uneven. The frame adjusted immediately. Thump, 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 faster. I imagined my own heartbeat echoing through the walls like sonar, and something on the other side of that doorway listening, matching, synchronizing, preparing. A cold pressure gathered in the hallway, the kind that makes your ears pop on airplanes. The wood bowed outward again, but this time it didn't relax all the way. The center of the doorway stretched inward, the darkness behind it deepening like a tunnel opening. The kitchen light beyond flickered once, then vanished entirely. The space inside the frame was no longer my kitchen. It was something deeper, somewhere else. My heartbeat pounded violently now. The doorframe matched it perfectly, not reacting, leading. For the first time since I'd noticed the movement, I realized something else. My heart wasn't setting the rhythm anymore. It had changed. The beat was slower, heavier, deliberate, and my chest was following it. The hallway seemed to inhale around me. The wood flexed outward like expanding lungs. A faint pressure pushed through the doorway, like the first breath of something enormous. I staggered backward. The frame stretched wider. The darkness inside thickened. And then I understood. The doorframe wasn't reacting to emotion, or proximity, or even my body. It had been syncing with me for one reason: to borrow the rhythm, to learn the timing. So when the threshold opened, whatever was on the other side could cross over. In perfect, human breath.